Hi, everyone. Are we still awake? No, I'm sure you guys are still having amazing conversations. Hope you're enjoying the day. I guess I've just been told that I'm here to introduce our next speaker. I'm going to preface it by, you saw me earlier in the very feminine, happy place, and now you're gonna see the little sassy Maya, because I had to introduce my dad, okay? So bear with me. I was about to read the back of his book, but I'm very honored to be introducing my dad today, Henk Rogers. We used to call him the original, most interesting man in the world. You may see the resemblance in his face. He looks like the Dos Equis man. Anyway, this most interesting man in the world is my father. He wrote a book during COVID to really tell the true story of what happened with Tetris. And a funny side story, I'm gonna start walking now, is that he was like, you know what, I'm gonna write a book, my biography, but it has nothing to do with Tetris. And so he writes this book, and it's everything to do with Tetris, if you can see. And so now we're supporting it. And he's gotten so much press, on his book tour. So this is like, we're getting him at the height of his book tour. He's making a stop over in Hawaii. I think we're gonna plug this book in a little bit more. He's doing a little autograph signing. If you would like to purchase it, we're taking donations for his nonprofit Blue Planet Alliance. So what's interesting about Henk is that he's the crazy guy that went to the Soviet Union on a tourist visa. Some of you may have seen the Tetris movie, played by Taron Egerton. And so he's that crazy guy that went there and risked everything to get the rights for Tetris and made it what it is today. Today, he spends most of his time trying to save the world with his initiatives, starting with Hawaii, with the Blue Planet Foundation. Ivory, where are you? There's some people from the foundation that really started, this nonprofit sustainable movement in Hawaii. And so now he's out there doing this outside of Hawaii. So I'm very excited to introduce Henk Rogers, my dad.
It's the perfect game. Tetris?
Tetris. My name is Henk Rogers. I'm the guy who went to Moscow in 1989 to get the Game Boy rights to Tetris.
Tetris is a constructive game. You're not shooting and killing anything, and this makes it a game that works for the rest of us, non-gamers.
So the Tetris effect is when in the evening you close your eyes at the end of the day and you see Tetris blocks. That's the Tetris effect.
Not too bad.
It's the perfect game. Tetris?
Tetris. My name is Henk Rogers. Okay, that's enough. So this isn't nearly as bad as what I did to her at her wedding. So thank you. I was waiting to get roasted.
You still have a chance.
I still have a chance. Okay, there's still time. Where do I start? Yes, the book. I started writing the book. How many of you seen the movie? Whoa, that's a lot. So there was a period of time during COVID when Alexey Pajitnov, the guy who created Tetris, and I were working on the movie script. They sent it to us and they asked us, what do you think? What should we fix? And it was so bad. I couldn't believe it. It had so much Hollywood bullshit in it.
It wasn't that bad. Okay, it wasn't bad. It wasn't that bad. Sorry, I have to interject. It wasn't as accurate.
Hey, look.
Hey, you wanted a roaster? I'm here for you.
I'm talking here. I'm talking. And so we were like, oh my God, this is going to be such a bad movie. And so we worked on it. They let us work on the parts that had to do with the Soviet Union. Like Alexei would say, no, the KGB didn't need guns. They can just, people are terrified of them. They just walk into the room and they say, because you end up in a gulag. So you don't need guns as if you're KGB. So anyway, he and I both worked on the script. And they wouldn't let us to touch the Hollywood part. No, I didn't sleep with my interpreter. And no, there was no car chase. There was like a lot of stuff in there that Hollywood added. And then finally got to see the movie. Well, okay, I shouldn't jump to that part. I wanted to set the record straight. I wanted to give the script writer what actually happened. So I furiously started writing what actually happened. But of course, writing takes time. And by the time I'd finished writing what actually happened, the script was already with the director and they were already starting to shoot the movie. So I was way too late. When I finally did go to see the movie, get to see the movie, expecting the worst, I was amazed. Like what the difference between a script and a movie is huge. The script is a little thin, 50 pages with words, and it doesn't describe all of the tension and the detail and the setting and all any of that. And so when I saw the movie, there were several times when I cried, and I cried about things that never happened in real life. And one of them was, when I didn't show up to Maya's performance, and then there's an empty seat there, and that's me not showing up, which I'm sure that happened many times. It just didn't happen the way it happened in the movie, but I'm sure it would have happened at some point. You
also didn't set up a little stage for me to dance.
And I didn't set up a little stage where she sang. And then she's singing, like, oh my God, what father wouldn't have a, father-daughter moment in that scene? So yeah, I did cry. Somebody got to see what I'd written, and so they said, this could be a book, except that it's about like 1/3 of a book. And so, what should we do? And I was thinking about that, and I don't want to rewrite what I've already written and add water, like just fluff it up. And so I decided to write the before and the after. And I wrote a whole bunch of stuff. I was, at that period, it was during COVID, so I was in writing mode. And my first editor, looked at what I'd written and said, this chapter, it's a tangent, doesn't, scratch. So I went from 65,000 words down to 45,000 words. But then the story had a beginning and an end, and it was coherent. Then I went to found the publisher, and the publisher had another editor. So I went through the same process again, and then the other editor said, oh, I don't understand this, I don't understand this, I don't understand this. And then they actually had people read it, test readers, and they also said, oh, I don't understand this and that and the other thing. And then, so I wrote I answered all the questions that they had, and it turned out to be 75,000 words. So it went 65 down to 45, down to 70. Anyway, my grandchildren look at the book and says, how many pages? It's like, that really has to do with how big the font is. If I could have made it smaller font and less pages, or bigger font and more pages. But anyway, they don't get that. I said 340 pages. Whoa, 340 pages. So I'd like to read a little excerpt from the book. I had small, medium, and large sections, but I'm going to leave more time for Q&A because there's so many of you. So I'm going to pick a medium section of the book, and it's a chapter called The Perfect Game. Oh, wait. I did LASIK. One eye sees far and one eye sees near. And it works fine most of the time, but if I'm reading a book, then I need...
You don't have to explain. It's okay, you're allowed to take your glasses out.
There you go. The 1988 Las Vegas Consumer Electronics Show, CES, was the main showcase for new electronics and video games. It featured everything from new computer systems to cutting-edge technologies and car stereos. It even had a separate section for the porn industry. Every major US publisher of computer games had a booth displaying the games they hoped would sell that year. As a professional show, it attracted corporate buyers, members of the press, and people like me who were looking for the next great video game. I flew there from Japan hoping to find something new for BPS, Bulletproof Software, my company in Japan, to publish. Unbeknownst to me, that weekend I would find a diamond in the rough and make gaming history. I walked into the computer game section of CES and I found myself standing in one of several huge halls with high ceilings. I began to explore the aisles, finding the space a bit daunting in its vastness and its bright lights and cacophony of sounds ranging from blaring rock music to symphonic mood music and competing clamor of video game sound effects. The aisles were lined with station after station of new computer games on display. Each station had a line of people waiting for their turn at the controls of some new game to get a taste of the style, the look, and the all-important gameplay. I saw Super Mario 3, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest III, Arkanoid, King's Quest IV, The Legend of Zelda, and The Fool's Errand. And I tried a few of them out. I was amazed by the impressive audiovisual experiences on display. The industry had taken a big leap forward. As I wandered through the booths, I found my way to the Spectrum Holobyte booth. There, in one of their dozens of monitors, was a very crude-looking, simple, real-time puzzle game called Tetris. I hopped in line and waited. Finally, my turn came. I found myself playing one of the simplest games I'd ever seen. It consisted of colored blocks of different shapes falling from the top of the screen. That's all. At first, I didn't take it seriously, but I played on. Maybe there was more to this game than met the eye. The competing games around me all had better animation, big explosions, deep stories, better musical scores. Tetris lost to all the others in every respect except for gameplay. I was standing moving little colored squares around the screen. It looked like one of those slow geometry puzzles, only this one was real time. It was pure game, no frills of any kind, just gameplay. When my turn was done, I stood there watching other people play and I did a mental review. No animated characters, no story, no fancy graphics, only simple manipulation of clumps of falling blocks to fill gaps in the leftover spaces at the bottom of a well. Seriously? How could this be a computer game in 1988? Computer games are generally built to fit a certain audience. More often than not, this audience is young men. This means that they tend to be rite of passage games where young men can prove their prowess somehow. Tetris was nothing like the other games surrounding it at CES. It was way too simple to be a normal computer game, and yet it pulled me right in. What was it that made me come back? Why was this game so compelling? Was it because it was about creating order out of chaos? Was it so satisfying to build in clear lines? Why did this game leave such an impression on me? I think it was because of its simplicity. Whoever came up with this game had to be a mathematical genius. Other publishers were undoubtedly overlooking this game because it appeared to be a throwback to a time when computers didn't have graphic cards. And as I would find out later, that's because it was. This was a pure geometry game, no extra nonsense. This could well be a perfect game. It was a pure game, no bells, no whistles, no fancy graphics, no great story, no music that I could remember, nothing, pure game. Brilliant. My mind was racing. Did I like this game because I like puzzles? I didn't know many other people who were into mathematical puzzles. Would Japanese people feel the same way I did? I would have to go back to Japan and find out. I stood in the Tetris line 4 times, playing again and again, until I put the high score on the machine, replacing someone named Gilman Louie at the top of the leaderboard. This game was working its magic on me. I was already addicted. Gilman Louie was a developer turned executive, like me. I first met him at his office on 3rd Street in San Francisco, And over time, he went from someone I did business with to a good friend. We had annual gatherings in Hawaii, flew a helicopter tour over active volcanoes. That's not a very good idea anymore, I guess. On the Big Island, and had dogfights in real planes at Air Combat USA in Orange County. Now, I have in their little boxes where Alexey wrote in the margin of my manuscript, and I decided to add those little, what he wrote, into my book. And his English isn't the best, and so I asked him, do you want me to fix your English? And he said, no, it's okay. So, this is Alexey. Gilman was big fan of Tetris. He played amazingly well. He kept the best score in the company. At the end of each game, the text scrolled down the screen. Tetris was invented by a 30-year-old Soviet researcher named Alexey Pajitnov, who currently works at the Computer Center Academy Soft of the USSR Academy of Sciences in Moscow. And he has something to do about the spelling of his name. That is how they spelled formally my name. I prefer a more brief and simple version, Alexey Pajitnov. I looked at the copyright notice on the box. Copyright Mirrorsoft and Andromeda Software, licensed to Sphere. I realized that I already knew the major players, some better than others. The very fact that these fascinating people, as well as a Russian developer, all had a stake in Tetris intrigued me all the more. In some way, the game became less important to me at that point than the story behind it and the people involved. Something told me to delve deeper into this Tetris game, and this is where the real adventure began.
The end.
So when I started writing, I wasn't sure that I knew how to write, and maybe I didn't know how to write. And I went on Facebook and I said, "Does anybody out there either can edit or ghostwrite for me?" And so a woman said, "I can either edit or ghostwrite for me. That's up to you." So I sent her the manuscript, and she read it, and she said, "There is no way I'm ghostwriting this for you. You are writing this yourself. I will edit." I said, "Okay." And so then I started writing the before and after. And so that's how I ended up having a book. So I worked on the cover. Maya actually got me to go to New York, and she made me some famous, what is his name, man? What's his name? Yeah, he's a photographer. You sent me to New York to get my picture taken. This is the picture. You did a great job. And so I had my brother Brian help me work on the cover. But basically, the publisher that I worked with, basically, I get to keep control, creative control. And that's usually not the case with other publishers. So this is my book, the way I wanted it to be done. So
I think you can sit down now. Maybe we can have a.
Are you expecting me to sit there, or
You want to banter like this? Because we can.
I don't know. Are we bantering? Is that what we're doing?
Well, I think they put me up here because they wanted us to have a conversation. Maybe. Well, I have not prepared for this, so I'm gonna pull out what comes out of my head. Question I have for you. So you mentioned Alexey Pajitnov, who is the inventor of Tetris. You and Alexey are still partners to this day. You couldn't be any more different. The yin and the yang. I mean, so different. What is the kind of magic sauce of your relationship, and what have you learned about each other?
What have we learned? Okay, so when she said we're different, so Alexey likes classical music, I like rock. Alexey likes to plan things, and I like to adventure. So we actually went, the two of us, on a Ural pass around Europe. And what we did is every other day, like one day it would be Alexey, and the other day it would be my day. On Alexey's day, he planned everything, where we're going to go, where we're going to stay, everything. On my day, we would pick a random train, get on that train, and go somewhere where we had not planned to go, and we would find our way around and find a place to stay at the end of the day, and so on. It worked just fine. So I mean, so you don't have to be identical in order for things to work out. So anyway, Alexey and I, oil and water, we argue about game design all the time, but I listen to him, he listens to me, and so we get to hear opposite opinions. And that's kind of what feeds our relationship, is that we almost, like if he agrees with me on something, I'll buy him a drink. That almost never happens. So it's funny, but if we're in the same city, every other day, bottle of wine.
So interesting. Listening to each other is one of the key takeaways. I'll remember this next time we're in a meeting.
What she's trying to say is that she thinks that I don't listen to her, but actually I do. She just doesn't realize it.
Vice versa. I forgot my next question now.
We can take a question from the audience. Does anybody have a question from the audience?
Over here.
Oh, there's a mic.
There's a hand.
It's traveling.
Hello. When's the last time both of you guys played Tetris?
Like together or separately?
Separately. I played Tetris a couple of days ago. People give me things all the time and say, like, have you seen this version of Tetris? And it'll be like the very first version of Tetris that came out on Game Boy, which has a glitch of some kind, It's like, wow, it's like, oh yeah, give it to you. So, yeah, so I must have been last week.
Well, so you're playing a bootleg version of Tetris?
No.
Oh,
No, this is
an
a
older
Nintendo version.
Okay. I played yesterday because we have a game that's in beta, so I had to play something.
Alexey plays puzzle games. He still does. And so he gets deep into analyzing not only Tetris, but all the other puzzle games. And then he criticizes everything that we do.
I have another question. So how did you start a business in Japan without learning or knowing the language?
Well, okay, so this is, this gathering here is Blue Startups. And my first startup was in Japan, and I knew nothing. I knew nothing. I knew nothing about business. I didn't speak, read, or write Japanese. So, if you can start a business under those conditions, you guys have it easy. At least you speak the language, you've got somebody to tell you this is how you do a business plan, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't have any of those things. I majored in computer science and minored in Dungeons and Dragons at University of Hawaii. And, this is the days before computer science, before personal computers. And chased a girl to Japan, her mom, and started having kids. By the time I started Black Onyx, which is my first attempt, I had 3 kids already. So I have 3 kids, no visible sign of and then I said, I'm going to take a year off to write a computer game. I've never written a computer game before. All I'd ever done was homework assignments. I kind of went to Akihabara, the electronics center in Japan, where all this personal computers and software were being sold. And I went and said, what is selling? Because I wanted to get away from my dad, because he would never listen to me in the gem business. I was in the gem business with them. So I went there, and what's selling? And they said, well, games are selling. And I'm like, games? I can make a game. I used to play games at the University of Hawaii. We had an organization called ARG, the Alternative Recreational Realities Group of Hawaii. And we used to play Dungeons and Dragons, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I said, I'm going to make a role-playing game, because there were no role-playing games. And I thought that would be a hole in the market, and that would be my chances to bring something to Japan that didn't exist. What I didn't know was that nobody played Dungeons and Dragons in Japan. How would I know that? I didn't know that. And so nobody knew what a role-playing game was. And so I made this game for an audience that didn't exist. And when it came to Christmas, well, I really wanted to create this game. And for me, and you'll get that from the book, I don't like to lose. And if I start something, I'm going to finish it. And so I wrote that. Okay, does anybody here understand what 64K is? Okay, I wrote a role-playing game, including graphics, including machine language for 3D, in 64K. You know, like, if I send you a picture today and it was 64K, you just like, come on, send me a little high res, higher res than that, because 64 is not even a photo these days. 64K was the first role-playing game in Japan. It was the #1 game in Japan in 1984.
I did remember my earlier question. I was thinking, you're actually like a kind of embodiment of East meets West. You grew up in Holland, but you have roots. Your parents are both from Indonesia. And then having moved to Hawaii, moved to Japan, moved to Hawaii, starting businesses that connected worlds. What advice, and it's sort of similar to the question I had about, starting a business in Japan, but what other advice do you have for entrepreneurs and people who are interested in venturing into other markets and vice versa? What is like the common thread?
Well, the 2 times I did something which made me the most money or got me into business were when I found something that was popular in one place and brought it to another place. So the first time was role-playing games when I brought it to Japan. And the second time was when computer games were popular on mobile phones in Japan. But in the US, you couldn't even play games on mobile phones yet. And so I knew that was going to happen. So I started a company, by the way, in Hawaii. And at the time, the first handsets that you could actually take a picture with, they had a memory limit of 64K. And so rather than because I'd lived in San Francisco for 7 years, I came back to Hawaii. I hired a bunch of programmers straight out of UH. I didn't want anybody with experience, because experience meant that you could, build these giant games on CD-ROMs of multi-megabyte graphics and all that. And here we're talking about a phone. It's got 64K. So I said, I don't want anybody with experience. We're going to make games in Hawaii, and we're going to sell them in the country. And that was the most money I ever made. So that was the second time. It's when I found something that was happening in Japan, brought it to the States. So if you travel and you see something somewhere that's popular, it's very possible that it's going to be popular where you are. And so that's the easiest way to start a new business.
I think we often forget, right, that like what you see is not what everybody else sees. So being able to kind of see that and point it out and bring it to another place, I think I'm guilty of that, like I'm so used to seeing it here, but then, it's not happening in this side of the world. So that would be that's great advice, I think, that I need to take on myself.
Whoa, that'll be the first time. She never listened to me.
Anybody have a question?
The spirit side of things, what's honest cheating outside was the moonshot you really think is the challenge that is the answer to the
Okay, so fast forward, that company that I made in Hawaii to make games for his question was about Blue Planet Foundation and Blue Planet Alliance. This is my nonprofit. So this is after I sold my company. I was playing tennis at Waialae Country Club, and this is a month after I sold my company. And after tennis, I didn't feel good. I was kind of sitting there waiting to recover. No, I wasn't recovering, so I thought that was weird. So I got up to walk to the front desk, and I was wobbly. I said, whoa, that was weird. And so I went to the front desk at the tennis club, and I said, I don't feel good. And it's Waialae Country Club. There's always a doctor playing tennis. So is there a doctor on the court? And they got a doctor. He came over. He says, first of all, he says, give this guy aspirin and give this guy oxygen. That is the thing you do just in case somebody's having a heart attack. All right. Then he says, I'm sorry, but I'm not a specialist. I'm a radiologist. I don't know what's wrong with you. You look like you might be having a heat stroke. I had never had a heat stroke before in my life. And I just sold my company. And so then he asked me, would you like us to call an ambulance? And so I said, call an ambulance. I mean, like, I just sold my company. You know, what a stupid time to take a chance on something like that. Ambulance guys come over. They say, there's nothing really wrong with you. We'll take you in for observation. Okay, fine. We're not even going to turn on the siren. Where would you like us to take you? And I said, Straub. That's nearest where I used to live at that time. Halfway to Straub, the siren went on. That's when I knew the shit hit the fan. And he's in the cockpit. He's gone. He's talking to Straub now. I can't hear what he's saying, but I know it's like, this guy's not going to make it. You better get the OR ready now. There's no whatever. So here I am lying in the back. You got to be kidding me. I haven't spent any of the money yet. But that was the first thing I thought. And the second thing I thought, I said, no, I'm not going. I have stuff to do. And I still have stuff to do. And so I have 2 stents. The doctor they wheeled me straight into the OR. He asked me, can we operate on you? And I could still sign. If I hadn't been able to sign, they would have had to wait for my wife, who didn't know where I was, and they would have had to wait, and I would not have made it. So I was lucky. I was lucky. He said, that's the best decision you ever made in your entire life. Fine. So in the recovery room, I'm thinking, well, what did I mean by stuff? I already have enough money so that my wife doesn't need me anymore. My kids are already graduated from school, so they don't need me anymore. And it's like, I've done all these things already. So then I decided, what is it that's going to piss me off if I didn't do something about it by the end of my life?
Just talk about
So I worked it backwards.
Talk about one.
Talk about?
This question was one question. You're going to talk about your 4, but just talk about
Yeah. I'm just entertainment. This is yeah. So anyway, I in the back of the newspaper, it had the little article in the recovery room. It says, oh, by the way, we're going to kill all the coral in the world by the end of the century. And what's causing that is ocean acidification. What's causing that is carbon dioxide. What's causing that? We are. So I said, no, we are not. So my mission, number 1, is to end the use of carbon-based fuel. I started the Blue Planet Foundation to end the use of carbon-based fuel in Hawaii. 2015, we were the first state in the country to have a mandate, a law that says Hawaii has to go 100% renewable energy for electricity by 2045. And at that time, we were spending $3 billion a year on fossil fuel to make electricity. Since then, 15 other states have copied our legislation, so it's moving across the country. Starting with California, they also have a mandate of 100% by 2045, but including New York, Illinois, 51% of the people in this country now living in a state that have a mandate that says they're going to go 100% renewable by 2045. That's the foundation and the alliance. What we're doing with the alliance, we're doing the same thing, but outside the United States. So we're starting with island countries, and we're expecting the domino effect to happen the same way it happened in the US in the rest of the world. So we bring island countries to Hawaii, show them what we did, and help them, put them on course to achieve 100% renewable energy in their jurisdiction. And what's the end game for all of this? The end game is by 2045, if I have my way, we all will stop using carbon-based fuel for anything.
Thank you for answering the question. I think we're almost out of time. Yeah? Okay. So if you'd like to, I think you might have seen the booth is out there. If you want to meet Henk, if you're interested in the book, here it is.
So all the proceeds from this book are going to go to the Blue Planet Alliance. So if you want a book, well, we don't have enough for everybody, but for those of you, maybe I should have a contest. Whoever donates more gets a So donate, and even if, we can just put you on a list and we'll send you the book afterwards. Okay. We can do that.
All right. Thank you guys for listening.